important that all of us who are here today realize that our kids are not really the ones who are driving the infection. It is being driven by older individuals. And yes, we can send the kids back to school, I think, without fear. We need to not act out of fear. We need to act out of science. We need to do it. We need to get it done.
What you just heard is not a crackpot theory. It is at the center of mainstream science. Increasingly, what you just heard represents the consensus among physicians and researchers around the world. Children are not meaningful vectors for the coronavirus. Worldwide, there is not a single recorded case of a student infecting a teacher with the virus, not one case. And that's why so many nations around the world are reopening their schools this fall. But we're not. We've got a presidential election in November. Children must suffer so that Joe Biden can win that election. That is the imperative, the political imperative driving our so-called health policy. But you're not allowed to know that, so they pulled the video telling you that. Here's another physician from the same press conference called Dr. Stella Immanuel.
There is a cure for COVID. There is a cure for COVID. It's called hydroxychloroquine, it's called zinc, it's called Zithromax. And it is time for the grassroots to wake up and say, no, we're not going to take this any longer. We're not going to die.
Dr. Immanuel's claim is harder for us to endorse. Is hydroxychloroquine part of a cure for the coronavirus? We don't know the answer. We do know that many frontline physicians around the world have prescribed hydroxychloroquine and continue to prescribe it. We've interviewed some of them on the show. The drug appears to show promise in treating some early-stage patients. That's good news. The science on hydroxychloroquine is not settled either way. Science rarely is settled. That's why it's science and not, for example, radical feminist theory. Science is constantly evolving as we test and retest our assumptions against observed reality. That's the whole point of science. Unfortunately, reality is not the point of politics. Winning is the point of politics, so they scrubbed that video. Here's more of it.
My message to Dr. Anthony Fauci is, when is the last time you put a stethoscope on a patient? That when you start seeing patients, like we see on a daily basis, you will understand the frustration that we feel. And you need to start feeling for American people like we, the frontline doctors, feel. And you need to start realizing that they are listening to you. And if they are going to listen to you, you got to give them a message of hope.
Oh, that clip enraged them. Because above all, you must never mock the sainted Anthony Fauci. Under no circumstances can you note that Dr. Fauci is in fact very often a hypocritical buffoon who refuses to admit what he clearly doesn't know. If you say that out loud, they will cancel you. Fauci is too useful to the Biden campaign. So until November, Fauci's word must be law, even when it doesn't make sense. Criticize Fauci and you will disappear from the internet. And so Dr. Immanuel disappeared from the internet. And then Google's countless toadies online did the cleanup work, the ugly stuff. The Daily Beast attacked Dr. Immanuel for the crime of getting her medical degree in Africa, and then suggested she believed in witchcraft, because, you know, Africans do that, right? So political correctness is fine with the Daily Beast most of the year, but this is election season, so Dr. Immanuel must be destroyed. The Daily Beast was happy to help achieve that. So, by the way, were the think tank libertarians, including some still posing as conservatives, people you read, people who work for places you probably have sent money to. You saw them on Twitter today, helpfully reminding you that this variety of censorship isn't really censorship because the government isn't doing it. Oh. They didn't explain exactly why that distinction matters to anyone. In fact, censorship is always bad, whether it's imposed by Congress or whether it's imposed by monopolies that only exist because they receive special carve-outs granted to them by Congress. It doesn't matter. Censorship is always wrong. Censorship does not improve public health. In fact, it threatens public health. The authorities responsible for containing this pandemic clearly have failed. We know that. Some of them are decent people. They're trying their best. But despite their efforts, they have frequently been wrong. We know that because it's on tape. So what we desperately need now, as we always do in crisis, and especially in a crisis that can be solved by science, is more voices in the conversation, not fewer. Want proof? Here's the Surgeon General. Remember when he told us this?
what the World Health Organization and the CDC have reaffirmed in the last few days is that they do not recommend the general public wear masks. Wearing a mask improperly can actually increase your risk of getting disease.
Oh, so masks are dangerous. Right. That wasn't very long ago. Now masks are mandatory, and the cops will nab you if you're not wearing one. What does this tell us? It tells us what we already knew, if we were honest, which is that scientific consensus changes. That's the point. As we learn more, our conclusions change. Legitimate scientists understand that. That's called the scientific method. Big tech companies don't care one way or the other because their goal is not the truth. Their goal is to control the outcome of an election. It's not to protect public health. This isn't about public health, and it's not about science. It never was. It's about power. And no one in the history of the world has ever had more power than Google and Facebook have right now. So we should have seen this coming. People with power abuse that power, and people who have absolute power abuse it absolutely, as we learned. Alex Marlow, for one, did see it coming. He runs Breitbart. We talked to him about this exact question more than a year ago.
This is the battle. They are trying to win the 2020 election by shutting down and censor the outlets that might give voices to the voiceless, the people disenfranchised.
You really think you're going to get reelected president if nobody can hear your message?
Absolutely. They see this crystal clear, and that's why they're trying to shut down you and me.
Alex Marlow rejoins us tonight. Alex, thanks so much for coming on.